Here we are down on the build board, and you'll see in your kit you have a Fokker DVII assembly guide. Now this is the one that's also supplied with the 3-channel kit, apart from the fact that here on yours you should have a QR code and a web link to take you to this particular video. Kind of a weird cyclical thing going on here, but that is the actual addendum to this particular assembly guide, which goes through the differences in the build when it comes to building the 4-channel kit. You will also get, when you open up the text, you will also see QR codes within it, which will take you to the exact places in the 4-channel addendum where it goes through that particular part of the build and the differences that there are within. So that's basically how the assembly guide is laid out. Put that to one side for now, and we shall kick off things with the frame that you will have built up. Now it builds exactly the same as in the assembly guide, apart from there's a slight difference with the keel, and you can see here that on the keel on the 4-channel there is this little humpback here. And there's a slot there. You don't need to use that slot at the moment, but it assembles essentially exactly the same as the 3-channel models. So just follow the guide and the part numbers within, and you should be provided with, or end up with, an internal fuselage frame that looks like this. And what we're going to put in here is what we call the ACA, or the aileron control arm, and that comes in the form of one of those plywood parts that our kits contain. Now the standard 3-channel just has the motor mount here, which is slightly different. It doesn't have the cutout there, but it doesn't have all this other paraphernalia, which essentially from W2 through to W5, that is all part of the ACA. So we'll cut all those parts out and start the assembly process. Okay, so we are going to need the W2 through. You don't need to cut this out in any order. We kind of cut it all out. So there's our W2, W3. There are 3 W4s. Just putting my finger over the top so they don't pop off and fly around the room. Go, and last but not least, W5, which is actually the control arm itself. There we go, and we can put this one to one side in a safe place until we need to install the motor. So apart from those parts there are a couple more bits that we actually need, and one of those happens to be on the 2mm sheet, and that is D30. Very simple looking part there. So we'll just take that out, D30, and we also have, and this will be rather revealing, this will be on the plastic sheet. Now I've got a number of parts removed here already, and also no, you haven't gone colorblind. The struts here are actually green because I'm actually here building a new version of the 4-channel Fokker. It's exactly the same apart from the colouring. So all will be revealed, or for the sharper eyes of you, you will see that this is an aircraft that was flown by Lieutenant Franz Buchner in 1918. So quite a famous livery, in fact, and hopefully you'll be able to enjoy that one too. So let's just find those parts that we need on plastics, and those are actually P40. Now there are 3 of them. I don't know whether we need all of them, but let's cut them out anyway. There we go. And these basically, they look like washers, they act like washers. This is to reduce the friction when the aileron control arm rotates. Because we need to give that servo every chance of actually moving the ailerons. So let's see what we've got. The other part that you will need, and a part that often goes missing, is a tiny little screw too. So, and I have started using the CA glue. This is actually a foam safe. Obviously it doesn't matter because we're not using it on foam at the moment, but I find it works really, really well on the thin plywood. So we're going to use this to stick things together, and we're going to start off by creating a stack out of the W4 parts. I'll just give them a quick tidy up. All right, didn't fully cut them out. They've come away with a little bit of a twig here and there. There we go, and we basically just need to stack them up on each other. This is a very easy way to get your fingers CA'd together. So I haven't used my CA for a little while, so it's a little bit crusty. Still, I think there's no blockage. So I'll just put a little. Now I find that this is almost an instant grab with this CA glue, so we want to stack these as accurately as possible. So just, I could actually, put something sort of through the middle of them, I guess. Oh, that could have been fatal. There we go. Just pop that on. Put a little CA in between. Fiddle it now. Go. Push that all together. There we go. So that's all stacked up now, and the glue is instantly dried. And then on the W2 part, you notice the W3 part has a little half slot. I'll just get that little burr off there, and this basically sits underneath, and those 2 little prongs go up through the slots in W2 like so. So once again, just put a little bit of CA. Take the top off first, good idea. And then pop W2 on, obviously perpendicular to W3. There we go, hopefully it hasn't stuck to my fingers too much. And try and make sure that they sit at 90 degrees to one another. That's always helpful. go. Right, now you'll notice on W2 there is a little scored circle there, and what I'm going to do is attach our W4 within that circle. It should just fit, and try and get it as central as possible, like so. A little bit of CA there. Pop that in the middle. There we go. Now, before we go anywhere else, I'm just going to let that have a little bit of time to actually dry off. Let me just bring that a little bit closer so you can see how it's all sitting together there. There we go. And for those of you who are slightly more OCD than me, you could even get the part numbers to line up. I didn't. My apologies. There we go. Now I've given the little platform that we've created with the plywood a little time to dry, about 10 minutes. What I'm going to do now is actually attach the aileron control arm to the platform itself. And the way we do this is we're going to put we're obviously going to use the screw. We're going to put one washer on the outside, basically on the top of the ACA, and then we're going to put two underneath, and then this will screw directly onto the little platform that we've made. So there we go, one washer. Now the ACA I want so that that's where the servo arm goes, just there, and I want that on the left hand side of the aircraft, so it's on the right side as the aircraft's facing me, so I need it to be in that orientation. So when I pop this onto the ACA, that's the way it should face, so like so. So anyway, let's now pop that. I've just reversed it because obviously it's upside down now. Pop that on, and then I'm going to put my two other washers on top of that. As I said, they're quite a tight fit, so they should hold once they're on. I am using a slightly different screw than the ones that you've got there. Yours are more self-tapping than this one, but if you've got any of the rotary servos that we sell, the screws that come in there, which are essentially redundant because you normally just either stick them in or into the slot provided or similar, those screws can be used for things like this too, so they're worth keeping hold of, especially if you lose the screw that we provided or it gets munched by the carpet monster. So those two washers are on the inside now, and let me just get my micro screwdriver, and then we can pop that on there like so, and then oh, it all falls apart. Let's try again. I need to make bigger models, don't I? Not so fiddly. 1. 2. 'I can see this happening over and over again. Right, let's just start the thread off by rotating that. Don't think that's done it particularly, but let's get the screwdriver on there. I think it's taken. Good. So obviously we don't want to tighten this up so this thing doesn't move like I've done at the moment, but I can back it off a little, and then we've got nice movement. Obviously check for up and down sideways movement because we want to reduce that as much as possible. We don't want the servo having to do all that work, so I can probably just eke it up a little more. Okay, so back it off a little. There, that's perfect. Okay, so the other thing we can do while we're here is this little part here actually goes into that slot there. Now you can glue it in, but when you do glue it in, don't glue one of the sides here, because this slots in like so. I'll put it in front of there like so. So you can see how that they share the slot, as it were. So let's just take that out. I'll just add some of the foam to foam. And just put it on the back wall of that slot. There we go. No great shakes. If you do get some on the front, you can always just put the knife through, or pop a little of the lighter fluid through there just to loosen it up before putting the ACA in place. So that's just a little extra platform to give it stability when rotating. I've just noticed on mine it does dip a little bit below the bottom of the keel, so what I'm going to do is actually remove it, just slice a little bit off the bottom there. It was about 1 millimetre, if that, and pop that back again. There we go. There, that's absolutely flush now, so it shouldn't cause a problem when we come to install the lower wings. Just had some tea delivered in my, I won't tip the mug up so you can see it, but it's got you can see it's got some very nice British World War II aircraft on, and it's got a little sea fire just flying over the surface of the tea. Oh, and also it's on the other side, a Spitfire. There we go. Oh, lovely. Let's just put the ACA in place, and essentially we're going to slot the plywood part here with a notch in, just through down the front of the slot where we've just attached that little 2 millimetre part there. So it's literally just sitting there. So I'm quite happy with how the movement is there. If I do need to nip up the screw, I've got access to it here at the moment. And but what I'm going to do now is just obviously just add a little bit of, I'm going to use CA glue to put this in place, just because it's a little more rigid than the foam to foam. So and it also flows, so it's a good one to use. Well, it would have been a good one to use if the nozzle had been clear. But there we go. That's why I have lots of bits of piano wire lying around. There we go. Side two. Fabulous. And that shouldn't take too long to dry. And in the meantime, what we can do is prepare our rigging wire, which comes in the little bag here with stretch written on it. Now, this is actually not a very stretchable material, but just to take any sort of flex out of it, what you can do is take this off the spool and tie both of the ends together, and then hang something fairly hefty from a high up hook or similar. I tend to use the door frame, and I just hang something fairly hefty from it. When I say hefty, you know, like a carton of milk or something like that. It doesn't have to be very weighty, but you know, like half a kilo, something like that. And that works really well, just to bring the stretch out of it. Hang it for 24 hours, and then your cord should be really good. So as you basically avoid too much slack coming into the system during operation. So what we do need is we need two lengths of this, 650 or 700 millimeters. So I've handily got a measure on my board, unfortunately out of sight, but that allows me to measure about 600, length of 600, so I can just add a little extra to get what I need. So that's 600, 700. So if that's 700, then I'll just double it up. There we go. Cut off what I need. So I then go to the other end, cut that in two. There we go. You'll find the sharper your knife, the easier this cuts. It's quite difficult to cut if you've got a blunt knife. So anyway, so we've got two strands now. I'll pop that one up there, and we basically just need to add them to our ACA now. So to do that, what I'm going to do is pop my rigging tool, which comes in the pack, up through one of the two widely spread holes, like so, and draw the cord down through. There we go. And then, weirdly, or not so weirdly, I'm going to pop this in through the top there. And draw it back up again. In fact, probably what I'll do before I do that, I'll just pull half of it through. Half and half, there we go. Let's get the end that I've just drawn through, and we're going to draw that back through the hole. Like so. There we go. So I'm going to draw that through until we have roughly even Stevens on both sides. There we go, and then we've obviously got a loop through that one hole. So I'm just going to pull that through, and I'm going to tie a knot in here, which will obviously stop it going through and leave us with the two strands on the other side. Now, the knot, I'm going to try and leave as small a tail as possible. But if you do have a slightly longer tail, then you can always cut it off. And obviously you could add a little bit of CA glue to the knot just to prevent it from ever slipping or coming out. There we go. So now I've got a little bit of a tail left there, so I might give that a chop off. There we go. Obviously the tail can interfere with the rest of what's going on around it, so it's best to remove as much material as possible, and then just put that little bit of CA on there to prevent it. There we go, and then pull that through, and we should have our control wires that will be controlling. So what's going to happen here is you're going to have one goes off port, one goes off starboard, like that. And so when your ACA moves in one direction, that'll create slack on that side, and that'll create tension on that side, and so the ailerons will move in opposite directions if we fix these two cords to either the lower part of the aileron control or the upper part of the aileron control. If one's on the lower and one's on the upper, the ailerons are going to go in the same direction. So what I suggest here and now is that you mark this set, or it could be the other set once you've done those, but you mark one of these sets with a black mark, something like a Sharpie or similar, so that you know that these two, when they're put to either side, go to the same control horn side on either wing. So it saves confusion, it saves rigging it up incorrectly and having to then adjust it. So I've got a marker here. I'm just going to. This isn't the best. My Sharpie's downstairs. I should have gone and got it, but let's mark that up. So you could label them, but the thing is that you're going to be threading these through things, so those labels will have to come on and off every time you want to thread it through something. So it's best just to colour them so they're essentially colour coded, like so. There we go. I might go and get that Sharpie and do that a little bit more obviously. So what we can do now on the opposite side is exactly the same, but on these we're not going to mark them. So we know that the unmarked and marked are two separate controls. So when we thread them through the wing, when they come out at the aileron, we'll know which is which. So there we go. So pop the tool, threader tool up there, draw it through, sort it halfway, back down with the tool. It'd be better if I could show you this, wouldn't it? There we go. through. There we go. Just hold those in place. Go. Then tie my little stopper knot. Well, it's just a standard basic knot. That does the trick. Go. I'm just going to chop that tail off. Add a little of the glue. There we go. And then pull that through too. Fantastic. So there we have our fully installed aileron control arm. Oh, before we move on to putting the fuselage on, I wanted to show you how to make and install this. This is a little piano wire control rod that connects the ACA to the little linear servo that we're going to be putting in towards the end of the build, but it's absolutely appropriate time to put this in now because it's quite fiddly, and because we've got such a open frame at the moment, it just makes it a whole lot easier. So this is actually made from the control rod or one of the control rods that's supplied the standard piano wire control rod that you get in the kit. So there you get two of them, and it doesn't matter which one you use, but don't use the formed end. Use the straight end there. Now you can cut up to 70 millimeters off that without it affecting the use of it within the fuselage to connect the rudder and the elevator to the board that we're going to be putting in there, the little control board. So you actually only need, let's see what we need. It's about, well, you'll probably get away with 40. Yeah, so let's cut off 50 mil from our standard control rod. So let's just measure that out. I've got some markings on my scalpel, which is helpful. So that's around about the 50 mark. Let's just get my little pliers on this and cut that off. There we go. Put my main control rod to one side, and now what I need to do at one end is put in a little Z bend. So I've got small needle nose pliers. You can get them even smaller than this. So, but it's just a process of putting one bend in like so. So you've got a little L shape there, and then bending it in the other direction. The smaller you can get it, the better. But, like so. It's actually quite lumpy, but by machine standards, it'll have to do. And then we want to measure precisely, and I do mean precisely, 31 millimeters across the top here. So let's get that out, get my little marker pen, and let's just measure 31. So That's 31 from where the Z bend finalises itself. 31, so that's the 0 mark there. Okay. And then bending in the same direction as the Z bend, so as you can see there, I've put my little mark there, and I'm going to bend 90 degrees that way and a little bit further as well. So I'm just going to hold that there and bend that down like so. I don't have to go too far beyond the 90 degrees, because you'll see when this is installed and you've got the servo there, there is a part of the fuselage that won't let that drift up, so it'll stick in position. Now the tail here, we don't want the tail to be more than 4 millimeters long, reason being that the if it's longer, it can interfere with the servos, the linear servos below, once it's all assembled. So I'll just mark on there 4 millimeters, and then there we go. I'm actually just going to sand that edge down. It'll just take the burr off it, just so it doesn't catch with things like the control wires, or even during use, if it comes into contact with anything, it's not going to jar too much. So to install this, very simply, put your ACA into position like so, and then you want to put the Z bend into the hole there. Now obviously the control arm we need coming through to this area here, which is where the servo is going to sit on, in fact on the sidewall here, and obviously it's too long to actually put through at the moment, but what we can do is just move the ACA back like that. We can bend this part forward slightly, and then that should come through to the forward part, and then if we drag the ACA back to its neutral position, which is there, we've now got the whole thing in position. So we just leave that the control arm just sitting there for now. It shouldn't come out. It should stay exactly where it is, although it will flop around a bit. But as you can see, so much easier because we can move this bulkhead at the moment to get that in place. There we go. Right, let's get on to the fuselage. So the fuselage for the Fokker D7 4-channel is only a slightly bit different to the 3-channel, in the fact that you've got two little holes here and here that have been cut out of the fuselage, and these are to allow the control wires to come out of the fuselage and up to the top wing. So that's the only difference. When it comes to scoring and sanding, you do exactly the same thing using the scoring guide and the beveling guide that's supplied in the box. And when it comes to putting the internal furniture on here, there's just a couple of extra parts that I'll come to once I've got this out and sanded down as well. So I'll crack on with that and come back when I've got it scored and sanded, beveled as well. Whilst I'm here putting the fuselage together, you'll see I've done my scoring and beveling. I'm just about to apply the little P5 parts, which is exactly the same for the 3-channel and 4-channel. But I just wanted to show you a little trick that I've come up with to get them in place. Of course, these things have got tiny little slots, and those slots are supposed to then correspond to the little slots that are on the cut into the fuselage. Now, these slots allow the struts to actually insert and position correctly. So it's and these act as reinforcements, so that during the stresses and strains of the aircraft being used, they don't rip out great chunks of the foam, but the stress is distributed through to this plastic part, and it reinforces the area around where the strut goes into. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to apply a little glue. This is the I should have done a couple of practice ones first, because it's been a while since I've done them, but let's give it a go. So I'm just going to add a little glue, and I'm doing it to the shiny side, because that's usually the side that's going to stick better. And then what I'm going to do, I've got an old blade here, and I'm just going to pop that through the slot like so, and then just going to use that to position into the slot on the fuselage like so, so that hopefully when I position the plastic, it sits directly over the slot that we need it to. There we go. I'll do that one more time, just as a way of demonstration. So a little bit of glue. So and using the old blade, that up through, and then through the slot, and position that like so. There we go. Now this particular one, as you'll see on the instructions there, the bit that overhangs the side, we can actually slice off once it's set and in place. So right, I shall carry on with adding those, and we'll come back and I'll show you the new parts that we stick on our new 4-channel holes. So we've got all the little inserts in. I haven't cut these ones off yet because I'm still waiting for them to dry. And also I should have mentioned, I put a little bend on the inside of these so that when we come to fold, they'll actually stick. There's glue on them, so they'll stick. They'll be pushed up by this part here, there, because they reside between the skin and the bulkhead there. So so they can sit and sort of, well, they're not going to flap around, are they, because they're quite stiff, but they're sort of independent of the inner side of the fuselage skin at the moment. Okay, well, let's get on to covering these holes up, and back to our oddly coloured plastics. And the parts that we're going to need for this are, where have they gone? There, P35. So you can see them there. It's a double-holed lozenge, and we're just going to flip that over so we can easily see where to release them. There we go, both released. Now they have received some print on the other side, as you will have seen. So basically we're going to stick this down with the print facing forward, so that when we flip the fuselage over, obviously you've got a coloration rather than any white plastic showing through. So and when we actually pop them in, they run up and down like so. Just there, position it. It's probably easier so that the holes are side by side, like so. Now, before we pop them in there, I'm just going to recommend just scraping your scalpel across those holes, just to make sure that there are any burrs that are left from the laser cut, where it obviously just melts the plastic to cut through. Any burrs are removed, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a sand as well, just to take anything off that might be there. And obviously, because we've got the lines running through here for the control of the ailerons, that we don't want them snagging up in any way. So that's going to work well. That's going to work in our favour to ensure that we get the maximum movement from them, from the ailerons as possible. Right, when gluing, the other thing I don't want to do is get glue anywhere near these two holes, because once again that glue will cause an issue for the lines that go through. So I'm going to basically add glue top and bottom, like so, leaving the holes clear. Now, if we do get glue in there, we can clear it fairly easily. Actually got a little bit of excessive glue, so I'll just remove that, and then I'm going to just find something that's too thick. Use a bit of wire. I'm just going to hold on to that, pop that through the hole, and then position it appropriately, or not, as the case may be. Needs a little bit of working. There we go. We're clear through. There's nothing impeding or that will impede the lines when they go through. There we go. Stuck down. So we'll repeat the process for the other side. Just add a little dab of glue. I hear you. Got it the wrong way around. There we go. And just maneuver that into place. There we go, and I think we've avoided getting glue anywhere, which is great. So we'll let that all set, and then I can trim these, and we can actually start attaching this to the fuselage frame. And there's a little element during the installation that is particular to the 4-channel, which is essentially putting the lines through these holes here. But I will I'll show you on video as the next step of this installation and the addendum for the 4-channel Fokker. So I've already stuck down the underside of the fuselage to the frame, and now I can wrap the rest of it round as per our normal 3-channel installation as well. But before I do that, one thing I want to mention is when we've got glue around and we've got this string, you need to be careful to avoid getting any on here. You could tie these up, but they get used pretty quickly. But just be careful to avoid getting glue on the string itself. If you do, it needs to be washed off with the lighter fluid. Otherwise, it's going to cause problems later on once we're hooking up everything to the electronics and trying to get the ailerons to move with this control system. Just avoid getting glue or draping this onto any glued surfaces before you bring them together. Right, well, we're at the stage where we can actually take our control wires and start threading them through to the external part of the fuselage. At this stage, we've just obviously got the one set to go through. Now, as you can see, hopefully in this video, I'm taking the string from one end and splitting it both ways. You'll remember that we marked one set, so that and one of these, that one there, those are actually marked. They're coming from that rear control arm, and the others are the forward ones, like so. We can then thread them through. So the ones on this port side go through the holes here. Now the holes should actually be big enough for you to be able to just pop them through. Maybe just dampen them slightly. And there we go. So that's one through, like so. And then let's manage to wrap itself around one of the bulkheads. Okay. So obviously the forward facing control arm, that string goes through the forward facing hole, and with the rear hole. So that's through, and then that's managed to loop around the other bulkhead. There we go. So those are through now. Now I'll continue the wrap. So essentially the process with this is that you do it a step at a time. So this will be brought up like so and glued into place, and then we'll wrap round the top there. I can then thread through. Well, I'll come back and I'll show you how I do it. So bear with me a sec. I'll get this side glued and I'll show you the rest. So as you can see, I've managed to fold the side up and get it glued. There are a number of key points to look at when you're gluing the side. Just make sure that the sides are flush with most of the bulkheads that sit at the bottom where the wing goes. This little return here on the fuselage should match up and just sit that probably ½ mil above the bulkhead with its chamfered edge, which obviously will take the plate that goes at the bottom there, the chin of the aircraft, and that should marry up nicely. Obviously this comes forward, the foremost part of the fuselage side should sit nicely onto that front face of the internal fuselage airframe, and obviously we've got our control cords wires through the fuselage on that side. So I'm going to now take this. This is probably the hardest part, and needs a little bit of what I term as dry fitting, just to make sure that when it comes over, the fuselage is going to pop down onto the other side, and it's going to be easy enough for us to stick it all together without having to manhandle it or force any of the pieces into place. And so we just want to make sure that happens. And also the forward bulkhead here, that should sit nice and flush with the front edge of the fuselage skin here. So when that wraps around, don't forget this does actually flex. So at the point of putting it onto or putting the first side onto the port side, you can make sure that it's stuck down in the right place, so that when that folds over, you get the nice flush part there. So when the nose sits on here, there's not too much of a gap between the two pieces. So there we go. I'm going to carry on with putting the sides on, and when I get that stuck down like so, I will then thread through my other side of the control wires into the fuselage before closing it up completely. So I've now wrapped the top around. I found that one of the bulkheads, the forward cockpit one, it was slightly too tall. I don't know whether this is just on my particular build, or whether it is sort of part and parcel of the new cut. But I just took about 1 millimeter off its height by I snipped the bulkhead in the middle, removed a little bit, and then you can see I put some sort of reinforcing strips just that side and on the other side as well, on that inside, just to sort of bring it all together. So that's dropped the height by about 1 millimeter, because I wasn't getting the wrap that I wanted. So take from that when you do build these, if you do find that you're struggling, most of the parts are extremely accurately cut, but if you do get into the situation where you're thinking, well, hang on a second, that's not reaching where it should do, just examine what's going on, and it might be that you need to just reduce the bulkhead in size a little bit, or whatever. Anyway, just a little tip there. Don't be afraid to take it a little bit off if necessary. So the next phase of the 4-channel side of things is just threading these other 2 control wires through the holes here before we completely close up the fuselage. So essentially it's exactly the same again. I'm just going to wet that slightly. So the forward connected wire goes through the forward hole, like so. I've managed to avoid getting glue on any of it as well, so and then this one through that rearmost hole. There we go. This is the one with the marking on. So there we go. So that's through, and it's just a matter now of, as with the 3-channel, just folding that together and making sure everything's glued down nicely. Obviously at the rear here, it's important that the platform at the back here, a little bit of aberration in the video, the platform at the back here is actually as level as possible. So when you're gluing everything together, just make sure that that is the case. Yeah, so everything else should match up, and there we go. Right, I shall get gluing again. Hope you like the new livery, by the way. I haven't mentioned anything about it, but it's quite different, quite striking. So anyway, right, be back for the what's the next bit? I can't think at the moment. Well, we've got the attachment of the lower wings. Yeah, the building of the lower wings, because obviously with this particular model now, we've actually dropped to the scale 0 dihedral on the lower wings, whereas the 3-channel actually has some degree of dihedral, because obviously there's no aileron control. So so you need that little bit of dihedral to stabilize the aircraft. Good.